These are the most common mistakes you need to avoid when working with order of operations, and we're going to start off with the word PEMDAS. PEMDAS is an acronym we use to help memorize the order of operations: parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract, the order in which you're going to do these things. But a common mistake is that people think that this tells you the exact order to use. That's actually the wrong thing to do. You're supposed to use PEMDAS in this order: parentheses first, exponents second, multiply and divide is the third step. Do these together, scan for both at the same time, and complete this step from left to right order. Same thing for step 4. These are grouped together and do it from left to right order. So it's actually 4 steps. Most common mistake number 1, let's look at 2 different examples: 10 plus 2 minus 3 and 10 minus 2 plus 3. If you follow the wrong version, which is adding before subtracting in this case, you're going to get the answer wrong to one of these problems here. So in this example, you can see here adding was done first. 10 plus 2 is 12, and then 12 minus 3 is the last step, and you get 9. Here, we added first. 2 plus 3 is 5, and then 10 minus 5, you get 5. And if you did it that way in this step here, in this problem, this is the one where you'll get it wrong. So here's an example of what I mentioned earlier, where you're supposed to group multiplying and dividing and adding and subtracting together. So in this case, you're supposed to add and subtract from left to right. All that means is that as you're scanning your problem from left to right, whatever of those 2 operations appears first, you do that first. So since I have subtraction appearing first in this manner from left to right, then that means I have to do this first. So 10 minus 2, I would get 8, bring down my plus 3, and then my final answer you can see here would be 11. And then in this example, if you followed the wrong method, it didn't really matter, because addition and subtraction, which you do scan together, you're supposed to do from left to right. And you ended up getting lucky in this case because the addition was first, and when you subtract it, you will get 9. So sometimes if you do this the wrong way, you could get the right answer. But again, left to right means that out of those 2, when you're scanning the problem, whatever is first from left to right, you do that first. And this is another common mistake, but in the context of multiplying and dividing. So when you come down to that step, when you're scanning the problems, when you look at it, similar to my last explanation with adding, subtracting, you always simplify from left to right order. So in this step here, we have multiplying and dividing, and as I scan from left to right, this is my first one that appears. So I'm going to do 10 times 2, which is 20. Bring down my divided by 4, and when I do that step, I get 5. And then in this example, when I scan from left to right, you can see that this appears first, so that means I have to divide 10 by 2, which is 5, bring down my times 4, and I get 5 times 4, which is 20. Here's the next one, most common mistake number 3. You get an exponent like this, 4 to the 5th power, and you think that it means 4 times 5, and you get 20, but that is incorrect. 4 to the 5th power means this. The exponent 5 tells you that there's 5 of the 4s, which I have here, and they're all multiplied together. So exponents are just a shortcut for repeated multiplication. So again, the exponent always tells you how many of these 4s we're going to write down, and we're going to multiply them all together, which in this case, you're going to get 1,024. Common mistake number 4. You get a problem like this with parentheses, and you see an exponent, and the first thing you want to do is do 2 to the 5th power, which you get 32. But if you continue with this, you're going to get the wrong answer. Step 1 in the order of operations is parentheses. And even though the 5 is the part of the parentheses, you have to simplify what is inside the parentheses. So the exponent 5 is not inside, it's on the outside. So that means we're going to simplify this here, 4 divided by 2, which gives me 2. And then once you evaluate what's inside here and get it down to a single number, then you could apply the exponent. And similar to my last explanation, the exponent tells you how many 2's to write down. So 5 of these 2's, which I wrote down here, and they're all multiplied together. So it's just a shortcut for repeated multiplication. And when you multiply all these together, you're going to get the answer 32. Most common mistake number 5 is getting confused as to what all these brackets and parentheses mean. So step 1 is parentheses. And for parentheses, you might see brackets and parentheses. And the reason why we use brackets is because you don't want to use too many parentheses. So for example, in here, if I were to put all this in parentheses, 7 times 2, again, all these parentheses, you can see it kind of looks kind of confusion, especially when you have even more parentheses than what I have here. So when you're comparing this, you can see that it's a little bit clearer what you're going to do first in this problem up here, because we have brackets and parentheses. So think of this, step 1 parentheses, is you're going to focus in this brackets first, and then inside of here I have another set of parentheses, which means I'm going to do this first before anything else in here. So you can see here that the brackets tells me to focus on this problem here, and then inside here, I'm going to focus in here. So it's like you keep going within the parentheses, and then now 7 times 2, I get 14. And now that we got the answer down to one number inside this parentheses, all we got to do is the calculations inside these brackets, which is 42 divided by 14 is equal to 3.